Hello again, it's John. How are you? Hope everyone's well and safe and happy and well fed and watered and all that good stuff. I'm going to kind of combine a couple of things here because, there's a certain sort of genre that they mix into. I saw just kind of looking through stuff online. I forget what I was looking up for it, but or it might have just been a Google search and it was just sort of there. Probably because they knew I watched these, and then all of a sudden all the algorithms are trying to read my mind. But apparently there's a sort of almost genre coming out now, and I saw the title Daughters of John Wick, which I thought was pretty funny. But the two movies in question on the blurb were the two movies I'm going to talk about now. Jolt with Kate Beckinsale and Gunpowder Milkshake with a pretty darn good cast of a lot of cool people. I'm going to get kind of Jolt out of the way first. I had seen something about this a few months ago, and it had Kate Beckinsale in it. It was going to be an action movie, so right then and there, I was pretty much in. I know I first saw her with Much Ado About Nothing. I know, with the Kenneth Branagh movie that also has Keanu Reeves and Denzel Washington and Michael Keaton and stuff like that, which is a wonderful movie. I like the play anyway, but that is a wonderful adaptation of it. Kenneth Branagh kind of got out of his own way, even though he's the lead. Emma Thompson's in it too. It was before they broke up and everything, so they worked well together. It's a wonderful movie. If you get a chance, if you like just like good movies in general anyway, and you can handle Shakespeare, which, if you know me, I will, watch that. So it was good. And then there was a couple other Britishy movies, Cold Comfort Farm and some things like that. And then Underworld comes out. Now the Underworld series, this is roundabout and a non sequitur. Never mind. Never mind. But anyway, I've watched all the Underworld movies. I own them. I like them. They're not super great, but they're entertaining. And yes, Kate Beckinsale looks phenomenal in them. Also, really good actress. So you have a really good actress, even in these sort of not great movies with really bad internal timelines and things like that. Internal consistency not great in the series, but she's really good in them. And then you get like Sir Derek Jacobi, who's really good in them, and Bill Nye and all this other stuff too. But anyway, Stephen Ray comes up later, and he's not super complete sad boy like he usually is. But so I was like, okay, so we got some sort of Kate Beckinsale action movie, and I guess she's some bouncer, and there's some electrical harness thing with it. I'm like, the fuck? So apparently, Kate Beckinsale character has a like violent impulse control problem. They kept talking about cortisol and too much of that in there, so she'll kind of snap and react really violently. And it got her in trouble, and sent off, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, we thought the military would. It starts off with a really long info dump narration, which isn't great unless 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 you're going full Lord of the Rings on this. Having an info dump narration as your start for several minutes, not a great start. Poor Susan Sarandon did the best she could with it. I think it was Susan Sarandon, and who shows up for like 2 minutes later on. So during the info dump, it's like, oh, she grew up, went in the military. That didn't work out. She's beating up all these people. And then you get this throwaway sort of line that, and other stuff too. And it's like, okay. And it's like, oh, well, she tried this, she tried that. She was a bouncer, did this, got in trouble, the other thing. And then later on during the movie, you hear, again, sort of a throwaway thing. Oh, like Black Ops sort of thing. So apparently in these shitty throwaway lines that sort of almost used to sort of half-assed explain some of this other stuff she can do. Apparently she was working Black Ops and all this other stuff as well. So someone who's got horrible impulse control problem and can't take orders or any of this other stuff is working Black Ops. Like, seemed forced. But Stanley Tucci's in it, and Stanley Tucci and Paul Giamatti, who shows up in the other movie I'm going to talk about. When I see them in a movie, I'm going to know it was like at least one person in this is going to be insanely likable, even if they're a shitty character. Because both of them kind of have this sort of like really comfy sort of vibe, and they're both really amazing character actors. If you have any doubt of Paul Giamatti's ability to be a character actor, watch Lady in the Water. And if you watch Lady in the Water and can't stand him in it, there's something wrong. You know, you need some meditation and I don't know, some edibles or something like that to deal with whatever shadow stuff is blocking you from emotion, because he is heartbreakingly good in that movie. But anyway, so Stanley Tucci says he's her psychiatrist and built this sort of like, they call it a vest, but it's kind of like this. She's got like these electrode nodes like across in different things, and when she starts getting like she's going to snap, it hits that and like jolts her, and that's supposed to bring her in. And for some reason, they had it where she's going to snap and her irises contract instead of expand. I don't understand that. There could be something maybe with cortisol or something that I don't know what that I would have thought expand, but okay. Uh, so she does that, and she's going on a date, and this one guy seems great, and oh, I forget the guy's name, but he's been in some stuff, and I don't know, it was like he seems like he'd be a good enough guy, and he's got good physique and everything like that, but it's sort of like he's a weird looking guy. And I get it when they put him in sort of big, almost military-ish bruiser sort of things. I don't get it when they try and put him in subtler roles. I don't. There's something about it that doesn't add up right to me. With that, again, I'm not saying anything about his ability as an actor. I'm not saying anything as a person or anything else like that. It's just I don't see it. I'm watching the third season of Westworld now, and I've never really watched Breaking Bad except for a few episodes here or there, and part of that is because I'm sick of and can't stand things and shows where everyone's a piece of shit. And that Aaron Paul guy seemed to work well in his character with that. But now in Westworld, he's supposed to be some ex-military badass, and I'm 3 episodes in, and you can kind of maybe assume that later on he's supposed to have maybe possibly some romantic thing in with Dolores, and I'm like, no, no, no. I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that this guy is in any way, shape, or form a badass. I don't buy that this guy's in any way, shape, or form any sort of like high level military thing. I could picture him, okay, coming out of some rural sort of white town or something like that, and then kind of going in the army or something along those lines, but nothing exemplary. Again, it's not, and he seems like he's acting well in it. So again, I'm not saying anything against Aaron Paul's acting. I'm not saying anything against him as a person. I don't buy him as that character. It's pulling me out of the thing, especially since everyone else is so good, and he's good in it too, but everyone else fits and he doesn't. And it's the same thing with this guy. And let me look it up because it's bugging me. I can't remember this cat's name. Um, but anyway, so and then it turns out that apparently he's been killed in some sort of way. So she goes on like a quest of vengeance sort of thing, and there's some parts of it that is fun to watch. Kate Beckinsale go through a certain quest of vengeance, um, and beating the snot out of dudes and all this other thing, or what's supposed to be her character, because there are some scenes that reminded me of some of these Marvel movies where it's so painfully obvious it's the stunt double. Painfully obvious it's the stunt double. And I think sometimes it has to do with, apparently for some reason, everyone's got to have the shaky cam sort of thing. Like, this is actually making me more involved in the action if everything's shaking around like this and you see this punch. It's like punch, shake, cut, punch, shake, cut, punch, shake, cut, punch, shake. It's like I don't know what the hell's going on. Jai Courtney, that's the guy's name, Jai Courtney. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's a fine enough guy. I can kind of see how he would be considered handsome, and he looks like he's in good shape. I just don't get it. And the same thing with the Bobby Cannavale, who later was supposed to have, seem like they were going to have a little romantic thing if this went into a series, either as a TV show or a series as in another movie sort of thing. That was going to be kind of the love interest. But I don't buy that either. Because again, I mean, he looks like a normal kind of guy, and his character was nice enough and everything like that. It just doesn't seem to work. It just doesn't seem to work. And I don't know. I don't, it just for me, it doesn't seem to work. Um, Let me get rid of that. I'm going to go into another tangent. We don't need that at the moment. So, but it kind of goes into this thing, and the one person's supposed to be is actually for somebody else, and the other person is this billionaire with like a weird fetish sort of thing, and it's was it David Bradley? So of course you need a really creepy old guy who's a son of a bitch. You get David Bradley. Apparently, this is what you do. Um, but I mean, it was entertaining enough. I got through it. There's a twist at the end that I saw coming at the very beginning. Like, okay, this was sort of obvious. Spoiler alert, the boyfriend ish that she thought was dead and she was doing all this for is really alive and is really like some CIA guy masquerading, trying to set all this stuff up and take this guy down. It was like, oh, he's not dead. It's probably going to be him behind all this anyway. And it was right. Um, and then this whole thing they're talking about at the end, like, oh no, like you're going to do time, and then seemingly that day or something like that, she's fine out of the hospital and looking at the blown up things of her old apartment. And that's when, the Susan Sarandon character comes in and kind of re-recruits her in for some weird black ops shit. I don't, it seemed, I don't know if it was supposed to be like a pilot for a TV show and then other things would be fleshed out and then they scrapped it as a TV show. So again, they tried to shove everything into one movie. I don't know if it was just sort of like this hot mess and then they were able to, for a song, get Kate Beckinsale or something in it. I don't know. Now, I overall enjoyed it. It didn't rock my world or anything. It's not something I'm going to go out and watch a bunch of times or anything. Like the John Wick movies, I can watch and then probably rewatch them again, something like that. They're really entertaining, quirky, good, and everything. And they try to get that feel in it. They try to get a certain amount of quirky hyper violence with, you know, like a certain underworld of set up rules and sort of things like that, but sort of like an outsider being brought into that a little bit. But the way things were shot, the way things, some of the color schemes and neon-y stuff and everything that were used, could kind of put it in this sort of John Wick daughter category as well. I gotta say that there was some stuff. There was sometimes like she was walking down some of the streets and then like the street her apartment's supposed to be on and everything else like that. It threw me because it seemed like, I was like, this is a back lot somewhere. It just seemed painfully obvious to me that this is a back lot at some studio. Now there are some, if maybe there were other filters on the camera or this were some sort of noir movie or some sort of weird like Dark City or something like that, then maybe I wouldn't have bothered me as much because you kind of have this like you can't trust your senses, phony reality. You're separated, maybe some like Gnostic separation from the reality everyone else is in. That makes sense, but this is sort of like a realism sort of thing, and it bugged me that it seemed like a backlot. I don't know how you get around that. Studios are going to have what studios are going to have. I don't know, but it just was something that pulled me. But anyway, not bad. Maybe worth a watch, especially if you're a fan of any of the people mentioned, that Jai Courtney or Kate Beckinsale or Stanley Tucci or anything else like that. Or Laverna Cox was in it. She was great. I'm not going to lie. She was awesome in it. Like, she was just sort of like the, no, fuck you, this is what we're going to do cop. And the other guy was sort of like, well, let's see. But there's like, no, this is what we're going to do, idiot. And she was, yeah, she was just on it. She was funny. She was clever. She was, action stuff, and it was really good. So it was good to see her in that too, and upper her profile and everything. So yeah, but I mean, it's not something I'd really watch again. It's not something I'd buy. Uh, again, I'd recommend it if someone just wants to kind of veg out watching an action movie for like an hour and a half or whatever. The other movie on this, I was looking forward to much more so because I have known about this for much longer. Jolt I only knew about, I saw one blurb about, and then like a month or two later it came out. But Gunpowder Milkshake, I've known about since I think probably they started writing the script or at the very least started pre-production. Because like on Instagram, like I'm this has got Karen Gillan on it. I follow her on Instagram. I follow Lena Headey on Instagram. But it's also, and Michelle Yeoh I also follow on Instagram. But it also has Angela Bassett and Carla Gugino. All wonderful actresses, all really good at everything they do, and it was really fun to see them all together. Um, and this one definitely is much more of a John Wick daughter sort of thing. Not maybe as heavy. Again, no, there's no problem with dogs in this. Thank God. Maybe, but there's some tragedy stuff in with it as well. But definitely has that feel where there's this underworld sort of thing going on. That's this very specific sort of thing with very specific rules and these shadowy governments and these interplaying people and these assassins that are really, really hyper ninja good sort of assassins, but have their own little quirks sort of thing, which is nice. It's not just rote tough guy sort of bullshit. There some little quirky things with this, and all that. But it's like clearly influenced by. Not that that's a bad thing. Again, you can almost have it where now these sort of like John Wick, not clones, but there's almost a Wickian subgenre of action now. And there's even, I guess, at one point in time, I'm saying, hey, you know what? The one Madripoor episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is like, someone watched John Wick before they saw this, and my buddy texted me, he was like, yeah, that was the director of John Wick who directed this. I'm like, oh, okay. But it's permeating, like it's showing up in like the MCU and all this, and so it's almost like all these shows have their Seven Samurai episode or their fill in the blank episode sort of thing. Now we're going to have a John Wick episode. Now we're going to have a sort of Wickian subgenre of action. So you've got ninja movies and fight movies, like boxing or Never Back Down or those sort of like movies where it's a fight ring or a tournament, blood sport sort of thing. You've got action sci-fi, so you get your Predators and things like that. Now we have like Wickian stuff, which I'm fine with because again, I enjoy the movies. So Karen Gillan, so young Karen Gillan is played by Freya Allen, who's Syrian in Witcher, and her mom is Lena Headey, and she's an assassin and kind of crossed the people they kind of work for in this funky way. It's like the board, or something like that. So again, it's like this sort of amorphous shadow mafia organization sort of thing. And there's this diner that seems to be part of it because they have the one sort of hostess waitress in the diner was like um, was it check your coat or check something for it was like code for give me your gun. You're not allowed to carry a gun in the diner sort of thing. And I'm watching it. It was almost sort of like would have been a neat little Easter egg in this if that would have been Peggy Lipton. If Peggy Lipton had lived long enough to be in this movie, that would have been a neat little Easter egg because the outfits look very much like the double R from Twin Peaks. And you have the older lady who's really kind of calm and sweet. It was like you could have had Peggy Lipton do this, and it would have been a neat little sort of nod. And I for one would have been like awesome. But alas, she has passed away and is not in this movie. Um, the mom goes in and kills these Russian guys who are looking for and then disappears for like 15 years. Karen Gillan goes into, sort of the protection of Paul Giamatti's character, still ends up being an assassin, badass assassin in her own right. And in the beginning of it, she had this one job to do, and these other people came in And she did her job. She protected herself. She killed all these people. Well, it turns out that one of them was the son of this badass gangster. And there's this whole association thing between that mysterious board she works for and these other gangsters, like rival things that they don't want a war. So they're kind of making her, it's like, you got to go do this. You kind of have to make amends with this. So you got to kill this other guy, get our money. He took a bunch of money, get our money back. So the guy, so she goes in and finds, the money and the guy, which is the guy who played, I think, Danny Pink in, Doctor Who. So you got two Doctor Who people who, in different seasons and different doctors, 11 and 12 respectively, from Karen Gillan and the guy, I can't remember the guy's name who played Danny Pink, but, crossing Doctor Who paths a little bit. She ends up shooting kind of on accident, just like gut shots him. Finds out that the reason he stole the money was because these people kidnapped his daughter, and was ransoming her for all this money. So she goes, takes him to this, clinic thing, which is clearly again set up for, their little assassin underworld, because you got to check your guns in this big tooth thing. And the doctor is sort of, knows who she is and what she's about and all this other stuff too. And then she goes forward with trying to rescue the kid and get the money back. And the board sends some people after her. So she's got to go to this bowling alley, which of course has the neon lights and all this other stuff, and has to try and get, has to change her clothes out of her cool like black outfit and everything to like this like sort of, the bowling jacket sort of weird stuff. She's like, seriously? Fights off the people coming after her from her own people, tries to take the money to the thing, tries to rescue the kid, goes after the people again. One of them betrays themselves, and they get into it, and they have these like classic monster masks and stuff on. So she breaks a broom and chases Manhattan with this broom, and the one with the vampire thing, she eventually stakes in the heart with the thing, which is pretty funny. Goes after the Frankenstein monster guy, ended up blowing himself up, and blew up the money with it too. These bearer bonds, they're gone. I thought it was like, well, it looks like some of them might still be whole. You can find the ones that are good and gather those up. I don't know. But before that, she goes in, and they tell her to get clean guns because everyone's looking for her now and all this other stuff. So she goes to this library. So just like John Wick, there's, instead of the hotel and their particular symbolic language, it's a big library with symbolic language, and all these books. It's like, oh well, you need these. So the self-help section has all this stuff, and you open up in one of them. Depending upon the title. If the I can't even think of an example one right now, but if one has something to do with money, you open up and there's gold bullion in it. If something has to do, Sharps rifles or something like that, there's knives in it. And all these other things that, Pride and Prejudice has this type of gun, this other thing has that type of gun in it. And with that, and you meet Carla Gugino, and she kind of recognizes her, and then you go in and behind this one wall thing, and you go in, and they got, all the guns and all the books and this VW van thing and all this, their little underground setup. And that's where Michelle Yeoh and Angela Bassett come in. And Angela Bassett's kind of like pissed off about this, like, no, we need to execute her now. And they figure out that she's Scarlett, which is Lena Headey, Scarlett's daughter. And you get the kind of sense that, Angela Bassett's character is really pissed at this. You get the kind of sense like maybe there was something more going on between them. You get the kind of sense that there's a little something going on between Michelle Yeoh's and Carla Gugino's character too. But they're like, no, this is cool, we'll help you and stuff like that. For old time's sake, we remember taking care of you, remember you being here when you were a kid, and everything. And they're like, yeah. And Karen Gillan's character is like, no, that was the best time of my life. And it was like when these 5 women were all together, that was like a really good time. She goes off, comes back, rescues the kid, but the money's gone, and then has to kill the other people again, and they like paralyze her arms, so she's taping up her arms with the gun and like a knife, and kind of spinny, floppy, trying to shoot and stab and all this other stuff too. And the kid's there and kind of has to help her a little bit because the dad ended up dying. And you get, it's like clearly the doctor actually killed the guy. Like could have maybe saved him, so only got shot, but definitely let him die or outright killed him. So Karen Gillan's character is sort of like, well, I killed him. It's because of me that all this. So it has the kid. There's like a chase in like the car park, and the kid's trying to help her with the steering because her arms can't move, so they got him paralyzed from the doctor. And there were some parts of it where it was interesting, and again, I hate car chases, but there were some parts that were cool because they utilized parking and hiding, which seems reasonable to me, and sort of built tension because it's like, oh, they're gonna, kind of got that Jaws hunting sort of thing going on. And so that, I mean, that was kind of cool and all that. So again, it was stylized, and then again, of course, she meets back up with her mom and is able to, has the kid with her too, and the kid's identifying herself as her apprentice, which was cute. And they go back to the library and everything else like that, and everyone's got the reunion and dealing with the relationships there, and so they got to fend off like wave after wave of the bad guys. So because they blew up the money, Paul Giamatti's character has to then basically like tell the mob people, hey, look, this is who killed your person. This was unsanctioned, not our problem. We didn't do this. We hope that we're going to be cool if we tell you this. But they end up, the mob people end up, kidnapping the kid. So Karen's got to go get her at the diner, and she's like supposed to go alone, and she's saying goodbyes, but it ends up the rest of the women come in and help her. So there's like this bloodbath, killing all these um, mobsters at this diner after a bloodbath at like this library and stuff. But in the library, Carla Gugino's character does end up getting killed, and she's like the sweetest, nicest one out of like the whole group too. So it's like double. It's almost like it kind of reminded me of sometimes some different movies out of like China or Korea or Japan or something like that, or even on Bach from Thailand. You know the the sort of maybe like the really lovable character is like, oh well, clearly this one's you can't kill them and they die. It's like, well, you can't do that. No, but they did, and that was very sad and everything because everyone involved with that's very good actress. But the happy ending over besides that, the kid's safe, and the rest of the women are safe, and they're kind of off in their own little sanctuary kind of cabin sort of thing in the woods, and doing their own thing and all that. So mom and daughter are reunited. The other friends are kind of reunited, and even though the one passed on, but you have the kind of three generations of like these like kind of badass women coming together in these different ways. But it was cool to see. Again, I had been waiting for it for some time because, again, following several of the people involved with the movie on like Instagram as well, so that kind of clued me into kind of what was going on, and knowing that the cast was what the cast was, I was like, well, this ought to be exciting because all of these women are amazing. Paul Giamatti's in it too. That's awesome. So all these people are amazing people, and badasses and gorgeous and incredible. So this ought to be fun, and it was fun. It is something I would watch again. Maybe not like right now immediately, but it is definitely something I would watch again. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Not going to be anything that's going to blow the world away and change things. It is kind of in that Wiccan genre, but it's almost sort of like it's an early entree into that genre. It's like this, the John Wick sort of thing made the mold, and this comes in early on after it, maybe beating some, maybe a larger sort of societal ripoff kind of it as we go. So, uh, I had an analogy there for half a second, and it completely went away. Yeah, I had an analogy with Twin Peaks, and it's gone. Anyway, but so yeah, you know, watch both if you just sort of want like kind of fun action and see good actresses do a good job with kind of what they have. To me, Gunpowder Milkshake was definitely the better out of the two movies. Um, More stylized, a lot more like John Wick, especially with like the really specific sort of underworld and their little lingos and stuff like that with it. Um, but more going on. Sort of a better movie in general. So yeah, that's Jolt and Gunpowder Milkshake. I thought, and my little thoughts on both of those. So like, subscribe, all the usual YouTubey stuff, and thank you for watching. Ciao.